this week we put out a report on trucks, Grattan truck plan, and one of the recommendations was to introduce a low emissions zone. And we didn't scope that up in detail because I think it is the subject for a report in its own right. It's quite a complex area, but we're planning to do that report and publish it in 2023 with detailed design for how to, and this takes into account things like how much proximity matters to a main road, how much how much difference it makes when you've got a more vulnerable population in one way or another. So, and what kind of mitigations you can take in terms of sort of greening and that sort of stuff, so that we can come up with a detailed design. But at this point, our recommendation is that trucks manufactured before 2003 should be banned from the densely populated areas of the major cities.
Yeah, I wondered about that. And I was stunned looking at the figures you had in that report regarding how much worse they were, or trucks that were, over 20 years old, how much worse they are in terms of the toxic particles that come out and in the exhaust. Like, how much worse than more modern trucks? Is there some reason you chose 2003? Was there some change in the technology? Okay.
There was, yeah. So the pollution levels for trucks, the international standards are known as Euro standards. And before 1996, there were no standards at all. So anything goes. And those trucks are the worst. So a pre-1996 truck emits 60 times as much particulate matter and 8 times as much of the poisonous nitrogen oxides as a truck sold today. And then when the Euro standards were first adopted in Australia, Euro 1, the first level, operated until 2003. And that is better than nothing, but still, by today's standards, very lenient standards. And so, and the reason all this matters is that more than a quarter of the trucks on the road today are 2003 or earlier, and 14% of them are these pre-1996 ones, which are particularly toxic. And that's if they've been properly maintained. Some of them will be worse. So over time, the standards have become more stringent. At the moment, we're on Euro 5 standards. We have been since 2011. We're a decade behind kind of most major markets, which have been on Euro 6 for a long time. And so we've been agitating to get onto Euro 6. But even this year, Euro 7 is coming out. So we're so far behind. And so, of course, the truck operators don't really have an incentive to adopt these standards because it costs money. So it really is a matter for government regulation to prevent the interaction of really dirty old trucks with densely populated areas.
Yeah. So have you thought about how this would impact the industry? I'm sure you have. I'm just interested in your thoughts on it because, there could be a significant short-run cost. You could have a lot of probably smaller operators leave the market if they can't use their truck anymore. I imagine that the bigger operators have a more modern truck fleet, but then there's a lot of smaller operators that have the older trucks. Could this impact our supply chains? We've had all of the logistics problems this year and associated with people being off work or in isolation due to COVID. Things haven't been turning up at the supermarket. Have you thought about how this would what impact it'd have on the industry and how that could be mitigated, Marion?
Yeah, we have. So I'm very alive to this. I think you're absolutely right that the big fleets of trucks are generally pretty new and they're the ones that kind of get sold on and feed through the chain. So at the oldest end of the spectrum, it is a lot of operators who might struggle to get them to upgrade the truck. So a couple of things I'd say. One is that we don't really, the compromise that we thought was reasonable was that these trucks would be able to operate, but not in the densely populated area. So, for example, a lot of trucks that do farm runs can be quite old. and it's if they're in an area where there aren't many people, well, the harm is much less. Now, that's not any good if you're the actual driver, but it is some mitigation that you're not also kind of going past childcare centres and spewing out poisons at the kids. So there is, so that's one comment I'd make. We did recommend, though, that the government should assist by sort of with a truck replacement fund or a scrappage fund. So they're sort of different. Basically, we thought it should have a tender-based program where truck owners can make a binding bid for how much they'd be prepared to accept to scrap their truck. And because government's got to be a bit careful not to overpay for this stuff. In the end, these trucks have been allowed perfectly legally to create quite a public health hazard. And we think that should stop. But recognising that there are implications and that the government might want to assist with the scrappage fund.
Yeah. And so are you confident that this would pass the cost benefit analysis tests? If there was a regulation impact statement, a RIS on this, you'd be able to demonstrate that the avoided costs to the community through the fact that these particulates were causing an elevated level or incidence of disease in the community. And if we try to put put a figure on that, what you'd be willing to pay to avoid that, what it's costing the economy in terms of the, having to replace that truck fleet, any disruptions associated with that. Yeah. Are you confident that that equation would be in favour of this measure? Have you done any numbers yourself on that?
Yeah, look, the government's done a RIS, and there are clear social benefits to doing it. So we've updated that, and I think the basic figure is that the health benefits or health costs avoided, if you like, are like by 2040 would be of the order of 1.7 billion in a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, very considerable health benefits. And just to clarify for your listeners, by health benefits or health costs avoided, I don't mean the costs of treatment in hospitals. It's the pain and suffering of getting the disease. Like there are the diseases that you get from these poisons you get obviously respiratory illnesses, but because the particles are so fine, they get into your bloodstream, and so you can get cancer, type 2 diabetes, stroke. Can affect it affects children in particular and vulnerable people, even in children in the womb, and it also, even when it's not causing diagnosable disease, can impair cognitive function. And every time the World Health Organization or researchers do research on this, they find, oh, it's worse than we thought.
Right, yeah. So this RIS, I'll have to have a look into this. So this has already been done. Do you know how recent it is? I mean, is this on the agenda of governments to do something about?
Yeah, it's been on the agenda of governments for quite a while. I think the RIS is about 5 years old.
Yeah.
So we've updated that, but it's, if anything, more compelling now than it was then.
Yeah, but they've obviously they're someone in government has been concerned about what it would mean for the industry. Maybe they've been lobbied on it. I'm just wondering why they haven't done anything. But it looks like I guess, assuming that these numbers are right, I mean, hopefully your report does motivate some action in this on this issue.
Yeah, we're really hoping so. And I think by doing some follow-up work in 2023, we're working with some students at Monash to get more sort of air quality data, and to just enrich our understanding so that we can do detailed design that should be pragmatic and practical and effective. So I think it's a big issue, and I think it's an under-researched issue, actually.
Yeah. Okay.